The town of Greysmoor lay entombed in a valley, its jagged mountains devoured by a fog that writhed like a living plague, its tendrils coiling through the air with a malice that seemed to breathe, to hunger, to hate. Cobblestone streets twisted beneath sagging rooftops, their tiles cracked, moss-eaten, bleeding damp into the earth, where gas lamps flickered with a sickly amber glow, their light swallowed by the mist that clung to the ground, heavy with the stench of damp stone, rotting wood, and a metallic tang, blood etched into the town's soul, a wound that pulsed with every step. The air was a shroud, thick and suffocating, carrying whispers that slithered through the fog, voices singing in a tongue no one dared utter, their cadence a dirge that clawed at the mind, leaving scars of dread, a song that wove names, sins, deaths into its notes. At night, Greysmoor's residents barricaded their doors, not against thieves or wolves, but against shadows that danced at the edge of vision, their forms dissolving when gazed upon, leaving only a chill that burrowed into the bones, a whisper that lingered in the soul, a promise of oblivion. At the town's edge loomed St. Edric's Hospital, a Gothic colossus of blackened stone, its spires piercing the sky like the claws of a forgotten god, their tips lost in the swirling haze, their silhouettes jagged against a moonless night that seemed to mourn. Once a sanctuary of healing, it was now a crypt of despair, its walls stained with soot, time, and secrets that seeped from cracks like blood, whispers that bled from stone like tears. Townsfolk shunned its rusted gates, crossing themselves as they passed, their voices low with tales of patients who vanished without trace, of screams that echoed beyond death, of a choir, unseen, unholy, whose song drove the sane to tear at their flesh, their blood pooling in spirals, their eyes staring into voids no light could pierce. The hospital's windows, cracked and clouded, stared like blind eyes, their panes reflecting nothing but fog, yet those who lingered swore they saw faces, pale, eyeless, mouths open in silent song, their gaze a summons to madness, a promise of eternity in darkness. Nurse Evelyn Marrow arrived for her midnight shift, her boots echoing on cracked tiles in the entrance hall, each step a hollow drumbeat in the silence, the air cold and thick with antiseptic, mildew, and a sour rot that curled in the throat like poison, a stench that clung to her skin, that seeped into her soul. At 24, she was a stranger to Greysmoor, driven by desperation after her mother's suicide, a rope creaking in the attic, a note she'd burned without reading, its words, asterisk the song took me, Evie asterisk, etched in her nightmares. Her defiance of the town's warnings was a shield, her auburn hair pinned tightly, blue eyes sharp with resolve, though her hands trembled as she signed the logbook, the silence pressing against her chest like a fist, the ink pulsing, shimmering, as if the paper knew her name, her fate, her scar. Her lantern cast trembling shadows, catching peeling wallpaper and cobwebs that swayed like spectral threads, their movements too deliberate, too alive, each flicker a pulse of the hospital's malevolent heart, a rhythm that synced with her own, unbidden, unwanted, undeniable. Late again, Marrow rasped a voice from the darkness, its edges rough, like gravel ground underfoot, heavy with a fear it couldn't hide. Orderly Tom Blackwood leaned against a doorway, his lanky frame shrouded in a tattered coat, dark eyes glinting with unease and a bitter mirth that masked a deeper terror, a wound that never healed. At 37, his gaunt face was carved with lines too deep, as if Greysmoor had stolen his youth, his voice raw from tobacco, whiskey, and nights spent listening to the hospital's whispers, his hands scarred from a past in chains, prison, fights, a brother lost to the fog, to the choir, to the spiral that haunted his dreams. Blame the fog, Evelyn replied, her voice steady despite the chill slithering up her spine, her breath forming faint clouds in the frigid air, her words a defiance of the dread coiling in her gut, a shield against the hospital's weight. It's thicker than a gravedigger's lies tonight, Tom. Nearly lost the path from the boarding house. Her fingers tightened on the lantern, its warmth a lie, its light frail, flickering, as if it feared the shadows, as if it knew their hunger. Tom snorted, pushing off the wall, boots scuffing the floor, his movements restless, like a man haunted by shadows he couldn't name, his hands twitching as if to ward off a memory that clung like damp rot, a song that sang his brother's name, Gem, halved, marked, gone. Fog's the least of it, Evie, he said, his voice low, his eyes searching hers, probing, testing her courage, her sanity, her soul. Heard the singing yet? The choir? His gaze was heavy, burdened with knowledge he didn't want, a truth he couldn't shed, his scars catching the lantern's light, a map of pain, of loss, of dread. Evelyn's grip tightened, pulse quickening, her fingers cold against the metal, her heart a frantic drumbeat, the scar on her tongue, hidden, unknown, beginning to burn, a faint pulse that matched the hospital's hum. She'd heard the rumors, patients raving of a choir in the walls, a low, mournful hum that burrowed into the mind, driving some to claw their ears bloody, their screams blending with the song, their blood pooling in spirals that seemed to breathe. Just stories, she said, her voice firm, but the words tasted hollow, the memory of a whisper in the west corridor last night, Evelyn, Evelyn, come to us too vivid, too real, its cadence woven into her dreams, her nightmares, her waking hours. This place is old, Tom. It groans like a dying man, nothing more. He stepped closer, voice a whisper, breath sour with tobacco and fear, his eyes darting to the shadows behind her, as if they moved, as if they listened, as if they sang. Not stories, he said, his voice breaking, his hand trembling, his scars glowing faintly, as if the choir's touch lingered. Heard it last week, boiler room, deep in the guts of this hellhole. Voices, Evie, dozens, hundreds, thousands, singing something that ain't human, ain't holy, words that twisted in my head, made my blood freeze, like I was drowning in like they were pulling me under. It knew my name, Evie, knew Jem's name, my brother, dead 10 years, halved in the mines, spiral in his hand, same as this lot. It sang his screams, his pain, his death, over and over, like it was feeding on it. His voice cracked, his eyes wild, his fear a tide that threatened to drown them both, the hospital's silence a weight that crushed his words, its shadows a cage that held them fast. Evelyn's breath hitched, her heart pounding, the lantern's light flickering, as if the shadows pressed closer, hungry for her fear, their edges too sharp, too alive, their forms whispering, reaching, dissolving. She wanted to dismiss him, to cling to reason, but the hospital's silence was too heavy, too alive, its walls pulsing, humming, a sound just beyond hearing, a presence just beyond sight, weaving her name into its song, a summons she couldn't ignore, a lure she couldn't resist. Before she could respond, a scream shattered the silence, raw and guttural, tearing through the hospital from the east wing, a sound that seemed to rend the fabric of the night, to claw at the soul, its echo lingering like a wound, its pitch rising, twisting, inhuman, a chorus. Evelyn's lantern swung, casting wild shadows that writhed like specters, their forms twisting, reaching, hands, their song a whisper of voices, a dirge that drowned the world. Tom's face paled, his bravado crumbling like ash, his hand gripping the doorway, frame until his knuckles whitened, until his breath burned, his eyes bled, his terror raw, primal, a mirror to, that's hers, ward a plea see. The dead room, Evie. God help us, it's happening again. They ran, footsteps pounding on warped floorboards, the scream fading to a sickening gurgle as they reached the ward, their lanterns casting frantic beams that danced on the walls, revealing cracks that bled black ichor, spirals that pulsed, whispers that sang. The door was ajar, the air inside colder, heavier, reeking of iron, rot, and something acrid, like burned bone, a stench that clawed at the throat, that seeped into the skin, that promised death. A patient lay on the gurney, or half of him. From chest up, he was pristine, his face frozen in a rictus of terror, eyes wide and unseeing, pupils dilated into voids, mouth gaping as if his final scream lingered in the ether, his skin pale, translucent, veins pulsing like black rivers beneath, their patterns spiraling, alive, hungry. Below his ribcage, there was nothing, no blood, no torn flesh, only a clean severance, impossibly smooth, as if sliced by a blade forged beyond the world, the edges polished, reflecting the lantern's light in a way that made Evelyn's stomach lurch, that made her scar burn, that made her soul recoil. In his clenched hand was a shard of black glass, etched with a spiral that pulsed, its glow casting shadows that writhed, forming shapes, faces, hands, mouths, eyes, voids, that vanished when looked upon directly, their presence a whisper of something ancient, something cruel, something eternal. Evelyn froze, her breath catching, mind reeling at the impossibility, her heart a war drum against her ribs, her hands shaking as she held the lantern, its light flickering, as if afraid to touch the body, as if it knew the choir's hunger. Tom gagged, backing against the wall, hands trembling, his voice a broken whisper, his eyes wild, darting between the body and the shadows, as if they might lunge, might claim him next, might sing his name, his brother's name, his death. God's mercy, not again, he said, his voice cracking, his face ashen, his breath visible in the cold, as if the room mourned the dead, as if the choirs sang their grief. That's the 9th, Evie, the 9th in 3 months, all halved, all marked, all singing. Jem was the first, 10 years back, same way, same shard, same damn song, his eyes staring, his mouth moving, like he was still screaming, still singing, still theirs. His words spilled out, raw, desperate, a confession he couldn't hold back, his fear a tide that threatened to drown them both, his brother's name a wound that bled anew, a spiral that bound him to the choir. Evelyn's throat tightened, her eyes fixed on the shard, its spiral moving, breathing, pulsing in time with her heartbeat, a rhythm that wasn't hers, that wasn't human, that wasn't alive. She wanted to run, to scream, to burn the hospital to ash, but her feet were rooted, her voice lost, the hospital's silence a weight that crushed her will, its shadows a cage that held her fast, its song a chain that bound her soul. The air grew colder, the stench sharper, the hum rising, faint but unmistakable, weaving her name, Evelyn, Evelyn, come to us, join us, sing with us. She blinked, and the body's eyes moved, focused on her, their voids swallowing the light, their gaze a promise of oblivion, their lips curling, whispering, singing, her name, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie Star. She stumbled back, her lantern clattering, its flame guttering, the shadows surging, hungry, alive, their hands grazing her skin, their voices weaving her fear, her guilt, her death. Dr. Julian Harrow arrived an hour later, summoned from his lodgings by a messenger boy who'd braved the fog, his face pale, his hands shaking, his eyes avoiding the hospital's gates, as if they might swallow him whole, as if they knew his name, his sins, his losses. At 42, Greysmoor's only physician, his sharp intellect was a blade honed by years of battling superstition, his brown eyes weary, shadowed by sleepless nights, haunted by losses he'd never speak, his wife, Anna, dead from fever, her eyes pleading, her voice singing, his daughter, Lila, lost to a fire, her screams echoing in his dreams, her face in every mirror. His black coat was rumpled, hair streaked with gray, face etched with the weight of a man who'd seen too much yet refused to yield, his presence a fleeting anchor in the chaos, though his hands trembled as he set down his medical bag, betraying a crack in his stoic facade, a doubt that burned like the choir's song. "Explain," he said, voice clipped, kneeling beside the body, gloved hands probing the severed edge with clinical precision, his fingers steady but his breath hitching, as if the air resisted him, as if it knew something he didn't, as if it sang his name, his guilt, his loss. The flesh was smooth, polished, with no signs of trauma or bleeding, a medical impossibility that gnawed at his rationality, a puzzle that mocked his science, its edges whispering of something beyond his grasp, something that made his pulse race, his skin crawl, his dreams bleed. He traced the severance, his gloves staining with a faint black ichor that seeped from the wound, its scent acrid, its touch cold, its presence a violation of everything he knew, everything he believed. Evelyn stood nearby, arms crossed, pale but composed, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, her eyes fixed on the body, refusing to flinch, though the scar on her tongue, hidden, burning, pulsed in time with the shard's glow, a fire she couldn't name, a chain she couldn't break. No blood, no struggle, no footprints, she said, her words measured, her gaze meeting Julian's, a spark of defiance in her blue eyes, a flame that flickered against the dark. Just like the others, Doctor. 9 in 3 months, all halved, all marked. And this. She held up the glass shard, its spiral glinting, alive, its light casting patterns on the wall, spirals within spirals, endless, hypnotic, drawing the eye like a vortex, weaving a pattern that whispered, sang, hungered, its glow sinking with her scar, her pulse, her soul. Julian's eyes narrowed, taking the shard, turning it in the light, his fingers steady but his pulse visible at his throat, a flicker of unease breaking through his mask, his breath catching as the shard's glow pulsed, syncing with his heartbeat, a rhythm that wasn't his, that wasn't human, that wasn't alive. Obsidian, perhaps, he said, his tone dismissive, a shield against the dread coiling in his gut, but his eyes lingered on the spiral, its curves pulling at his thoughts, whispering truths he wasn't ready to face, Anna's fevered eyes, Lila's burning screams, both woven into the song he'd heard in his dreams, both staring from the void. Ritualistic nonsense, he added, his voice sharp, his skepticism a fortress, but the shard's weight was heavy, its pulse a drumbeat in his veins, a song he couldn't unhear, a truth he couldn't deny. Likely a murderer's calling card, meant to scare, to sow panic. Ritualistic. Tom snapped, voice rising, fists clenched, his fear boiling into rage, his hands trembling as he pointed at the body, his scars catching the light, a map of pain, of loss, of dread. You didn't see the last one, Harrow, didn't see her eyes, replaced with glass, staring like she saw hell, like she was still screaming, still singing, still theirs. You call that a murderer's whim? You call Jem's death a whim? Halved, marked, his eyes gone, his mouth moving, singing my name, your name, this whole damn town's name. His voice cracked, his gaze darting to the shadows, as if they might lunge, might claim him, might sing his death, his brother's death, his soul's death, his fear a palpable force that filled the room, a tide that threatened to drown them all. Julian stood, gaze cold, his voice sharp enough to cut through the panic, his eyes avoiding the shard's light, as if it might burn him, as if it might sing his name, his guilt, his loss. I call it a crime, Blackwood, he said, his words a blade, his skepticism a shield, but his hands trembled, his breath hitched, his doubt a crack in his fortress, a whisper of the choir's song. Not ghosts, not demons, not your damned choir. A human hand did this, and I'll prove it, with science, with reason, with truth. But his fingers tightened around the shard, its weight heavier than it should have been, its pulse a challenge to his certainty, a summons to the void, a song that wove his name, his wife's name, his daughter's name, into its notes. He turned to Evelyn, his tone brisk, his eyes shadowed, haunted by a doubt he couldn't name, a fear he couldn't face. I need your report by dawn, Marrow. Every detail, time, position, anything unusual, anything real. We're not chasing fairy tales. We're finding a killer. Evelyn nodded, her throat tight, the scar on her tongue burning sharper, a fire she couldn't explain, the shard's glow lingering in her vision, its spiral etched behind her eyes, its song woven into her thoughts, her dreams, her soul. Julian left, his footsteps echoing down the hall, but the air grew colder, the shadows deeper, as if the hospital mocked his resolve, its walls humming, its mirrors pulsing, its song a tide that drowned his reason, his science, his hope. She glanced at Tom, who stared at the body, his face ashen, his breath ragged, his hands clenched, as if to keep himself from running, from screaming, from joining the dead, from joining the choir. "He's wrong, Evie," he whispered, his voice barely audible, his eyes fixed on the shard, its light casting his face in sickly glow, his fear a mirror to her own, his brother's name a wound that bled, a spiral that bound him to the dark. "This ain't human. It's the choir, and it's hungry, hungrier than ever. It wants you, Evie, wants me, wants all of us, wants the world." His words settled in her bones, heavy as the fog outside, a truth she couldn't yet face but couldn't deny, a warning that burned like the scar she didn't know she carried, a song that sang her name, her mother's name, her death. Evelyn's shift dragged on, the hospital's halls a labyrinth of flickering lights and distant creaks, each sound a needle in her nerves, each shadow a threat she couldn't name, their edges too sharp, too alive, their forms whispering, reaching, singing. She checked on patients, her lantern a frail defense against the darkness, its light trembling, as if it feared what lay beyond its reach, as if it knew the choir's hunger, the choir's song. In room 17, she found Agnes Vale, an elderly woman admitted for a fever, her frail frame dwarfed by the iron bed, its bars rusted, its mattress stained with shadows that seemed to move, to pulse, to sing. Agnes's eyes were wide with terror, hands clutching the sheets like a lifeline, her breath shallow, as if the air was poison, her skin pale, translucent, veins pulsing faintly, spiraling, alive, hungry, their pattern a map to the void. "They sang again last night," Agnes whispered, her gaze darting to the shadows, her voice trembling, as if the words were a curse she couldn't hold back, her hands shaking, her nails digging into the sheets, tearing faint spirals, bleeding faint ichor. "The choir, nurse, the silent choir. Soft at first, like a lullaby my mother sang, like a prayer I forgot, then louder, like they were inside my skull, tearing it apart, singing my name, my sins, my death, my daughter's death, Clara, my Clara, lost to the fog, to the song, to the spiral. They want something, nurse, want me, want Clara, want you." Her eyes glistened, tears spilling down her wrinkled cheeks, her fear a weight that pressed against Evelyn's chest, a mirror to the dread she couldn't shake, a song that wove her name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie Star. Evelyn sat beside her, hand gentle on Agnes's wrist, checking her pulse, though her own heart raced, her fingers cold against the old woman's fevered skin, her touch a lie of comfort she didn't feel, her scar burning, pulsing, singing. "It's just the wind, Mrs. Vale," she said, her voice calm, practiced, but the lie tasted bitter, the memory of the west corridor's whispers too vivid, asterisk Evelyn, come to us, join us, sing with us asterisk, their cadence woven into her dreams, her nightmares, her waking hours, her soul. Old buildings make noises, nothing more, just pipes, just creaks, just the fog. Agnes gripped her arm, nails digging into Evelyn's skin, drawing faint beads of blood, her voice urgent, eyes wide, as if she saw beyond the room, beyond the world, beyond the veil. "No wind sings names, girl," she said, her voice breaking, her tears falling, her fear a tide that drowned her words, her soul. I heard mine, Agnes, Agnes asterisk, over and over, like a prayer gone wrong, like a curse that binds, like a song that kills. I heard Clara's name, my daughter, taken by the fog, by the choir, by the spiral, her screams woven into their song, her eyes staring from the void. And I saw it, in the mirror, saw her, saw them, saw the choir. She pointed to a cracked mirror on the wall, its surface clouded, pulsing, breathing, its edges catching the lantern's light in a way that made Evelyn's stomach lurch, the glass rippling, watching, hungering, its spirals faint but alive, their curves weaving a pattern that matched her scar, that matched the shard, that matched the void. Saw what? Evelyn asked, her voice steady, though her heart pounded, the mirror's reflection showing only their faces, or so she told herself, her eyes avoiding its depths, her fear a weight that crushed her breath, her scar a fire that consumed her, its pulse a song that sang her name, her mother's name, her death. A face, Agnes whispered, her voice breaking, tears spilling, her hands trembling, as if they'd touched death, as if they'd touched the choir, as if they'd touched the void. Not mine, not Clara's, but hers, a woman, all in white, her eyes black as pitch, no whites, just voids, endless, swallowing, her mouth moving, singing without sound, her lips curling like she knew me, knew my heart, my shame, my sins. She reached through the glass, nurse, reached for me, her fingers cold, like ice, like death, like the fog, pulling me toward her, into the dark, into the song, into the spiral. I felt her, felt the choir, felt their hunger, their rage, their eternity. Her breath hitched, her eyes wide, as if the woman still lingered, as if the choir still sang, as if the void still called, her fear a palpable force that filled the room, that pressed against Evelyn's chest, that wove her name into its song, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. Evelyn's breath caught, her eyes flicking to the mirror, where, for a fleeting moment, she saw a shadow move, a figure in white, its edges dissolving like smoke, its presence a whisper of something ancient, hungry, cruel, its eyes voids, its mouth a silent scream, its hand reaching, its fingers grazing her reflection, burning, pulling, singing. She blinked, and it was gone, but the chill in her bones deepened, a warning that burrowed into her soul, her hand tightening on her lantern, its light flickering, as if afraid to touch the mirror, as if it knew the choir's hunger, the choir's song. Rest now, she said, forcing a smile, tucking Agnes in, her hand steady despite the tremor in her chest, her voice soft but strained, her scar burning sharper, a fire that spread through her veins, her mind, her soul. I'll check the mirror, Mrs. Vale. It's just a trick of the light, just the fog, just your fever. But as she left, the mirror hummed, a low, mournful sound that followed her down the hall, weaving into her thoughts like a poison, its cadence eerily familiar, as if it had always been there, waiting, watching, singing, hungering. The hall stretched before her, its walls cracked, their shadows shifting, as if alive, as if they whispered secrets she wasn't meant to hear, as if they sang her name, her mother's name, her death. Each step was a battle, her boots heavy, her lantern's light frail, its beam catching glimpses of things, faces in the cracks, hands in the shadows, spirals etched in the dust, pulsing, breathing, singing, that vanished when she looked too long, their presence a weight that pressed against her mind, her scar a fire that burned her resolve, her soul. She paused at a junction, the air colder, the hum louder, her name woven into its song, a summons she couldn't ignore, a lure she couldn't resist, a chain she couldn't break. A door to her left creaked, its hinges groaning, its frame etched with faint spirals, their curves glowing, pulsing, alive, as if they knew her, wanted her, hungered for her. She pushed it open, her heart pounding, the air inside colder, heavier, reeking of dust, blood, and despair, a stench that clung to her skin, that seeped into her soul, that sang her name, her mother's name, her death. The room was small, its walls lined with shelves, their ledgers crumbling, their pages yellowed, their ink faded but alive, pulsing, breathing, singing, their spirals glowing, weaving a pattern that matched her scar, that matched the shard, that matched the void. A mirror stood in the corner, its frame blackened, its surface rippling, pulsing, glowing, its spirals alive, reaching, pulling, hungering, its reflection showing not her face but another's, a child, pale, eyeless, her mouth open, singing, her voice a whisper that wove her name, Evelyn, Evelyn, join us, sing with us, die with us. She stumbled back, her breath ragged, her lantern clattering, its flame guttering, the shadows surging, the child's face fading, replaced by her own, pale, haunted, her eyes wide, her mouth open, a spiral scar on her tongue, raw, pulsing, bleeding, a brand she hadn't chosen, a mark she couldn't escape, a chain she couldn't break. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her fingers trembling, the scar burning, a fire that spread through her veins, her mind, her soul, its pulse a song that sang her name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie Star. The mirror hummed, its song louder, its shadows darker, its spirals alive, reaching, pulling, a void that promised oblivion, that sang her death, her eternity, her damnation. She fled, the door slamming behind her, her footsteps pounding, the hall stretching, warping, its walls closing in, its shadows lunging, their hands grazing her skin, their voices weaving her name, her fear, her guilt, her mother's screams, her mother's note, the words she'd burned, asterisk forgive me, Evie, the song took me star. She reached her room, slamming the door, her breath ragged, her scar a blazing wound, her lantern extinguished, the darkness a weight that crushed her chest, her mind, her will, her soul. She lit a candle, its flame trembling, its light frail, its shadows dancing, their forms too human, too hungry, too alive, their song too real, too eternal, too hers. The ledger, she'd grabbed one from the room, its pages crumbling, its ink bleeding, its spirals glowing, lay on her bed, open to a sketch of a spiral, its curves identical to her scar, to the shard, to the mirror's frame, to the hospital's heart, a pattern that wove her into Greysmoor's curse, a thread in a tapestry of blood, shadow, and song. She read, her hands shaking, the candle flickering, the shadows pressing closer, the hum rising, her name a chorus in the dark, a summons in the void, a chain in the spiral. The ledger was from 1792, its pages brittle, detailing deaths that mirrored the present, patients found halved, bloodless, their bodies marked with spiral-etched glass, their faces frozen in terror, as if they'd seen the abyss, as if they'd heard the choir, as if they'd sung its song, their screams woven into eternity, their blood pooling in spirals that breathed, that hungered, that sang. The hospital was a convent then, run by the Order of the Veiled Sisters, a sect shunned by the church, their chants forbidden, their rituals a blasphemy that pierced the veil between worlds, their purpose obscured, their hunger insatiable, their song eternal. The ledger spoke of Sister Isolde Varnholt, a young nun whose brilliance turned to madness, her eyes burning with visions of mirrors that showed her places, cities of ash, seas of bone, voids where faces swam, eyeless, mouthless, singing, their song a lure that twisted her mind, that burned her soul, that promised power, knowledge, eternity, at the cost of blood, of souls, of worlds. She led a ritual to summon the silent choir, a spectral force, a primordial entity, a void god promising truths beyond mortal grasp, its song a chain that bound the living, its hunger a tide that drowned the dead, its spirals a key to the veil, a door to the abyss, a gate to damnation. 12 keys were chosen, individuals marked with a spiral scar, their deaths meant to unbind the gate, to let the choir cross, to wear flesh, to breathe air, to sing the world's end, to drown the earth in its song. 11 keys were sacrificed, their bodies halved, their blood pooling in spirals, their screams a chorus that shook the heavens, their eyes staring into voids, their mouths singing the choir's song, their souls bound to its hunger, its rage, its eternity. A fire razed the convent before the 12th could die, and Isolde vanished, her fate a mystery, her curse a poison that seeped into Greysmoor's marrow, a debt that lingered through centuries, unpaid, unforgiven, eternal, its song never silent, its hunger never sated, its spirals never still. The ledger went further, its pages trembling in Evelyn's hands, its ink bleeding, its spirals glowing, revealing older cycles, 1613, 1457, 1289, 912, even earlier, back to a time when Greysmoor was a scattering of huts, its people bound to the mountains, to the fog, to the choir, to the spiral, to the void. Each cycle was marked by halved bodies, spirals, and the choir's song, as if the town were a sacrificial altar, its residents offerings to a god that never slept, never forgot, never forgave, its song a chain that bound them, its hunger a tide that drowned them, its spirals a key that unlocked them. The 1289 entry described the choir as a primordial entity, older than the earth, older than the stars, dwelling in a void where time unraveled, where souls were unmade, where reality was a scream that never ended, its spirals carved in human bone, its song a lure that twisted minds, that burned souls, that drowned worlds, its hunger insatiable, eternal, apocalyptic. The 912 text, barely legible, hinted at a first ritual, performed in a cave beneath the valley, where the spiral was carved into the earth, sealing a pact with blood, with souls, with screams, its echoes rippling through time, binding Greysmoor to the choir's will, a chain that could not be broken, a song that could not be silenced, a hunger that could not be sated. Evelyn's candle flickered, the air growing colder, the shadows thicker, as if the room resented her intrusion, as if the hospital hated her truth, as if the choir knew her name, her scar, her soul. The hum rose, louder, fiercer, weaving her name, Evelyn, Evelyn, come to us, join us, sing with us, die with us, its cadence a dirge, its weight a void, its hunger a tide that drowned her breath, her hope, her will. Her scar blazed, a fire that spread through her veins, her mind, her soul, its pulse sinking with the ledger's ink, with the hospital's hum, with the fog's whispers, with the mirror's song, with the choir's hunger. She turned to the mirror above her dresser, its frame plain but its surface rippling, pulsing, glowing, its spirals faint but alive, their curves weaving a pattern that matched her scar, that matched the shard, that matched the void, that matched her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. She stepped closer, her breath ragged, her candle trembling, her eyes fixed on the glass, its reflection showing not her face but another's, a child, pale, eyeless, her mouth open, singing, her voice a whisper that wove her name, her mother's screams, her mother's death. The child's face shifted, became a woman's, all in white, her eyes black voids, her lips moving, singing without sound, her hand reaching, its fingers skeletal, shimmering with frost, grazing Evelyn's cheek, burning, pulling, promising oblivion, promising eternity, promising the choir. She screamed, stumbling back, the candle falling, its flame extinguished, the darkness surging, the shadows lunging, their hands grazing her skin, their voices weaving her name, her fear, her guilt, her mother's screams, her mother's note, the words she'd burned, asterisk forgive me, Evie, the song took me, the choir took me, the spiral took me star. The ledger fell, its pages scattering, their ink bleeding, their spirals glowing, alive, hungry, weaving her into their pattern, into their song, into their void. She scrambled for the door, her hands shaking, her scar a blazing wound, her breath ragged, her mind teetering on the edge of madness. The hospital's hum a tide that threatened to drown her, the choir's song a void that promised eternity, that sang her death, her damnation, her eternity. She reached the hall, slamming the door, her footsteps pounding, the walls closing in, their shadows lunging, their spirals glowing, their voices singing, her name a chorus in the dark, a summons in the void, a chain in the spiral, a hunger in the choir. She ran, her boots slipping, her breath ragged, the hospital a labyrinth that warped, that twisted, its halls stretching, its shadows alive, its mirrors everywhere, cracked, clouded, pulsing, reflecting not her face but theirs, the choir's, the keys, the damned, their eyes voids, their mouths singing, their hands reaching, pulling, promising oblivion, promising eternity, promising the spiral. She reached the chapel, its doors heavy, its air cold, its silence a lie, its shadows a cage, its altar glowing, its crucifix inverted, its spirals carved in stone, in wood, in flesh, their light pulsing, their song weaving her name, her fate, her doom, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. She collapsed, her breath ragged, her scar a fire that consumed her mind a storm of fear, of guilt, of dread, the choir's song a tide that drowned her will, her hope, her soul, her eternity. A sound reached her, a knock, sharp, urgent, its rhythm a lifeline, a tether to the world she feared she'd lost, a whisper against the choir's song. She rose, her hands shaking, her scar blazing, her eyes fixed on the door, its wood cracked, its spirals faint but alive, their curves glowing, their song weaving her name, her fear, her fate, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. She opened it, her breath catching, her heart pounding, her mind teetering, the darkness surging, the light failing, the choir's song a void that swallowed all, that sang all, that was all. Tom stood in the hallway, his face gaunt, eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling, his scars catching the faint light, a map of his pain, his guilt, his loss, his brother's name, gem, halved, marked, singing. With him was Father Gideon Varnholt, Greysmoor's reclusive priest, his face a web of scars, his hands clutching a rosary, its beads worn smooth by decades of desperate prayer, his eyes piercing, seeing too much, seeing her scar, her fate, her doom, his presence heavy with a guilt that seemed to fill the chapel, to press against the walls, to hum with the choir's song, to sing with the choir's hunger. You've stirred the veil, Gideon said, his voice like dry leaves, his words a weight that crushed her breath, his eyes fixed on her, as if he saw her scar, her soul, her eternity, as if he knew her name, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. The silent choir knows you, nurse, knows your scar, knows your blood, knows your soul. It's marked you, as it marked my sister, as it marked this town, as it marked me, as it marked us all. His voice broke, his hands twisting the rosary until the beads drew blood, his scars glowing faintly, as if the choir's touch lingered, as if his soul was already theirs, as if his song was already sung. Evelyn's throat tightened, the scar blazing, a fire that consumed her, her voice trembling but defiant, her hands clutching the ledger, its pages crinkling, its ink bleeding, its spirals alive, hungry, weaving her into their pattern, into their song, into their void, into their eternity. Your sister, Isolde? She held up the ledger, open to the 1792 entries, her finger on Isolde Varnholt's name, the ink a wound that refused to heal, its letters pulsing, whispering, singing, their cadence a dirge that wove her name, her fear, her fate, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. Gideon nodded, his eyes glistening, his voice heavy with a sorrow that spanned centuries, his breath visible in the cold air, as if the chapel mourned with him, as if the choir sang his grief, as if the void sang his guilt. I was a boy, 12, when she led the sisters, he said, his words slow, deliberate, each one a stone in the weight of his guilt, his scars a map of his pain, his loss, his failure, his damnation. She was radiant, brilliant, my sister, my light, my hope, but consumed, raving about mirrors that showed her things, faces not hers, places of ash and bone, seas of blood, voids where voices sang, where eyes watched, where hands reached, where souls screamed. She said the spiral was a key to the veil, a door that must never open, a truth that burned her mind, that burned her soul, that promised power, knowledge, eternity, at the cost of blood, of souls, of worlds. But she opened it, Evelyn, opened the veil, opened the gate, opened the void, and the choir answered, with hunger, with rage, with a promise that bound us all, that damned us all, that sings us all. His hands shook, his gaze darting to the shadows, as if Isolde's ghost lingered, as if her song lingered, as if her eyes lingered, as if her void lingered, as if her eternity lingered. What is the choir? Evelyn asked, her voice urgent, her heart pounding, the ledger's weight crushing her chest, the scar of fire that consumed her, its pulse sinking with the chapel's hum, with the fog's whispers, with the mirror's song, with the choir's hunger, with her mother's name, with her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie star. Her fear was a tide that threatened to drown her, her courage a flame that flickered, frail, fleeting, her soul a whisper that sang, that screamed, that died. Gideon's eyes darkened, his voice a whisper, as if the walls might hear, as if the shadows might betray, as if the choir might sing, as if the void might swallow, as if eternity might claim. A presence, he said, his words heavy, ancient, eternal, apocalyptic, older than Greysmoor, older than the mountains, older than the stars, older than time, older than light, older than hope. It dwells beyond the veil, where mirrors break, where shadows bleed, where souls are unmade, where time is a scream that never ends, where reality is a song that never stops, where eternity is a hunger that never sleeps. It hungers for flesh, for names, for souls, for worlds, for light, for silence, for everything, for nothing, for you, for me, for us all. Isolde's ritual promised it passage, 12 keys, marked with the spiral, their blood to unbind the gate, to let it walk among us, to wear our faces, to sing our deaths, to drown the world in its song, to burn the world in its hunger, to break the world in its spirals. 11 died, their bodies halved, their blood spirals, their screams a chorus that shook the earth, their eyes voids, their mouths singing, their souls bound. Isolde vanished, her fate a shadow, her curse a chain, her song a void, and the choir, it waited, patient, eternal, insatiable, its song never silent, its hunger never sated, its spirals never still, its eternity never ending. His rosary snapped, beads scattering, their clatter a stark counterpoint to his words, the chapel growing colder, the shadows thicker, the candle flickering, as if it feared the truth, as if it knew the choir's name, as if it sang the choir's song, as if it was the choir's song. Tom shifted, his voice raw, his eyes wild, his hands clenched, his fear a tangible force, his gaze flicking to Evelyn, as if she were already lost, already damned, already singing, already spiraling. And now it's back, ain't it? He said, his voice breaking, his scars glowing faintly, his breath ragged, his brother's name, Gem, lingering on his lips, a wound that bled, a spiral that bound, a song that killed. 9 bodies, all halved, all marked, all singing. Evelyn's got the scar, I seen it in her eyes, seen it in her flinch, seen it in her fear, seen it in her soul. She's the 12th, like Isolde, like Jem, like the others, like us all. His hands shook, his fear a mirror to the horror they all felt, the ledger's pages trembling in Evelyn's hands, as if they too feared the choir's return, as if they too knew her name, her scar, her fate, her mother's name, her mother's note, asterisk the song took me, Evie Star. Evelyn's breath caught, the scar blazing, a fire that consumed her, the ledger slipping from her hands, its pages fanning open to a sketch of a spiral, its curves identical to her scar, to the shard, to the mirror's frame, to the chapel's altar, to the hospital's heart, to the town's soul, to the void's hunger, a pattern that wove her into the heart of Greysmoor's curse, a thread in a tapestry of blood, shadow, song, and eternity. How do I stop it? She asked, her voice breaking, her courage a fragile thread against the weight of Gideon's words, her scar a wound that bled her resolve, her fear a tide that threatened to drown her, her mother's note a whisper in her mind, a truth she couldn't face, a song she couldn't silence, asterisk the song took me, Evie Star. Gideon's smile was grim, his eyes a mix of pity and dread, his voice low, heavy with the weight of centuries, his scars glowing, as if the choir's touch lingered, as if his soul was already theirs, as if his song was already sung, as if his eternity was already damned. You don't, he said, his words a sentence, a curse, a truth that crushed her breath, her hope, her will, her soul, her eternity. The choir never forgets a debt, never forgives a slight, never releases its keys, never stops its song, never sates its hunger, never stills its spirals. But you can try, find the first mirror, in Isolde's chamber, beneath the hospital, hidden where the earth weeps blood, where the shadows sing, where the spirals never sleep, where the void never closes. Destroy it, with blood and faith, with a will stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than guilt, stronger than the song, stronger than the choir, stronger than eternity. But beware, girl, beware the choir, beware the mirrors, beware the shadows, beware the spirals, beware your scar, beware your soul. It twists minds, feeds on guilt, wears your face, speaks your voice, shows you your mother, your sins, your death, yours and hers, entwined, eternal, singing, spiraling. It'll beg you to join it, to sing with it, to become it, to drown in it, to burn in it, to break in it, and you will, your heart will, your soul will, your eternity will. His voice trembled, his hands shaking, his scars a map of pain, of loss, of failure, of damnation, his eyes fixed on Evelyn, pleading, warning, damning, singing, spiraling. The chapel trembled, the air colder, the shadows thicker, the hum a roar, the song a scream, the choir a void, a tide, a hunger, a god, a damnation, a spiral, an eternity. A sound rose, a hum, low and mournful, swelling from the walls, from the floor, from the air, from the shadows, from the mirrors, from the spirals, from the void, weaving their names, Evelyn, Tom, Gideon, come to us, join us, sing with us, die with us, spiral with us, drown with us, burn with us, break with us, be with us, be nothing, be everything, be eternal. The altar's mirror pulsed, its surface rippling, its spirals glowing, its void opening, its song surging, its hunger consuming, its eternity claiming. A face appeared, not Evelyn's, not Tom's, not Gideon's, but Isolde's, her ghost, her eyes voids, her mouth a scream, her voice a choir, a chorus, a cacophony, a tide, a void, a god, a spiral, an eternity, her hand reaching, its fingers skeletal, icy, burning, pulling, singing, spiraling, consuming. Evelyn screamed, Tom screamed, Gideon screamed, their voices a prayer, a plea, a curse, a song, a spiral, a void, a nothing, an everything, an eternity. The choir's song surged, drowned all, swallowed all, consumed all, spiraled all, broke all, burned all, was all, is all, will be all, eternal, unending, unyielding, unholy, unstoppable, insatiable, infinite.